we're sitting down for the second time because we recorded the original episode, and honestly, I'm just grateful for the time to get to sit down with
I
you
had a
again.
lot of fun doing this with you, man.
Yeah, so I think what you had told me is you might have misspoke on some stuff about radon, because I asked you what radon is, and you said you had been doing some continuing education, re-education, and there was some stuff. So if I ask you that question again, what is radon? What is radon?
Yeah. Radon is a naturally occurring gas that enters our home through negative pressure, and it comes from the dirt. And so it's really geology driven. Radon gas is what they call the silent killer, and it is the gas that comes from uranium decay. That creeps up into our homes through the dirt, literally. So in our crawl spaces, under our basement slabs, it its density in our homes really is dependent upon the construction of the home, where our home is positioned. You know, that home I just spoke to in Belgrade that tested at 40, we tested his neighbor's house and it was testing at 2, in very similar crawl space conditions. And so it just goes to show, like, it isn't as important as what is important is how your home is built. What's kind of impossible to really narrow down unless you get a certified radon test prior to building the home is the makeup of the geology under the home. And so radon is everywhere. We naturally breathe it in. Outside, it dilutes to levels less than 1, and we're constantly walking around it. But its ability to emit into our home, if exposed over a long-term period, can cause radiation poisoning. So it's a big deal. That feeling makes sense of everything else, like the 12-hour days, the showing up in the cold, the bullshit, like the ability to know that this is, my employee Ian said it at his wedding. It's like it's no longer zero sum. Like there's meaning behind everything that we do and why,
Yeah.
and to have that support. Gosh, I don't know. My heart's been closed off to it for a while now. It's really hard to crack it open too. So I don't know. I do know. I just don't trust a lot. Because the world's mischievous, man. Like, I mean, you see it with those couple of folks you had on your podcast, but like money as a motivator, I think eventually creates a veil over someone's eyes of honest intent where it's impossible to move through the world without money being what you worship, where it's like I'm constantly looking at how this person or this moment is going to add to my bank account, and it's gross. And like, I don't know.
And the worst part is it's like, it's in all of us, and it's a human thing. It's not even like, part of me is like, man, I don't even blame them. I get it. It's in our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's what we're doing to survive.
Well, and then you got the world buzzing all the time, influencing that in us. And it's so hard to really break away or recognize the system from afar and be able to separate yourself from it. And then too, to recognize like, okay, we are in the woods, like we are here to hunt. So if that means I got to show up and do this and that, and to be able to justify moments that are slimy and gross, and like, I don't know. That's one part of this business I'm really proud of, is being able to stand in truth and understand the profitability that we need to create in order to protect what we're building, yet to have the compassion to go into moments where the elderly woman who's running her life off of Social Security can't afford a $700 fan replacement, or other moments like Bridger Ski Foundation we got to help recently, and we got to discount their projects because they're nonprofit, they're awesome. But the part of business that I'm learning right now is, and you know, taking Nick's mastermind online, it's like, how can we make this so boring? Because at some point, I want to be able to step away for weeks and not have the worry of, will this implode or not? Because right now the business runs so much off of my personality. And so I'm constantly having to go into me and chat with little Jeff and go, hey man, if we don't position a standard now, like, we're just going to continue to encourage and compound against poor practices that really don't bring forward a sense of boring, like, and boring in the best way. And it's hard to teach, man. I don't do well with it. As the artist in me is just constantly wanting to tweak and and look at something obscurely and abstract and think like, okay, if I can do this, this, and this, but to assume that others are thinking in the same way as me is so ignorant. And then it's impossible to coach that. And so we're going back into our business now and looking at every moment in our SOPs and our pricing list and trying to understand like how can we refine this so that I can teach a fifth grader how to do this tomorrow. And when we hire a biz dev officer or onboard new technicians or bring in this cash investor, they don't need some colorful playbook. They need basics, and they want security as much as I do. And security to most humans in this world is a lot simpler than I'd originally thought when I started business all those years ago. It's really basic. It's a set of principles and practices that can be repeated constantly. And this is the part of spirit that I'm really trying to navigate right now is back to that zero sum idea. Is like I'm doing this as much for me now as I am for those that are helping me. And to be fair to those that are bringing in the help that I need, I have to get away from my own thinking, and it's calling out some of the best parts of me and some of the weakest ones.
Hi, folks. Quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule Media is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, or passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, post it in your story. That one simple action helps these businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this show keep going. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. Now back to the show. But when you say that, about being the artist in you, I feel that when I want to perfect everything and I'm looking at everything, I'm like, we could do this better. We can make this simple, but also how can we do it better? And then now I have to lead a team, and I don't want to be this overbearing, micromanaging guy, but there's got to be a way I can articulate the why so that they can believe in it. And they're doing it because they believe in it, not because I'm breathing down their neck, making sure they do it, standing over them. Like, you got to do this or you're going to lose your job. But that's the thing I'm getting better at, and I'm learning now is how do you take the why and the deeper reason of your business and then lead a team to carry that out kind of through you.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, you were on strong baseball teams growing up, I would think. Did you guys ever take like a championship home or anything?
Nothing major, and I didn't play I really only played till I was like 14 or 15. And like I told you, my father passed when I was young, and that kind of like threw a curveball and everything. I played like more probably as an adult. So like nothing, to the level that it is, but
yeah.
I probably would have drawn more from that if I was a little bit more present, but there was so much going on in my life then that I was kind of trying to escape a little bit by playing baseball.
What a tough childhood, man.
Yeah. But also what an awesome childhood at the same time.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because
who are we to question the plan?
I said that to someone, I said that when I did the solo podcast. I would never, wish what I went through on anyone, but it almost feels uncomfortable to say that I'm so grateful for who I am and what the experiences made me into.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. That's a really weird intersection between I would not want anyone, myself included, to go through half that tragedy, and I wouldn't replace any of those moments because they'd help me become who I am. So.
Yeah. My experience in my 20s is a lot of that too, and being able to reflect on, I guess, right after the fact, I wanted to know the why. It's like, why me, and to claim victim to something that I created, and then to look back at that past form or version of myself, and to really understand that. I think my favorite part of the relationship I had of when I was dating that gal who was my mirror was she introduced me to the idea of it's not your fault. It's like, you didn't know who you were. The world has enough pressure, and it's always pushing you to do things that, even in our deepest core, we know are wrong, we're still doing. I brought up baseball because I've been gifted great head coaches, and I was a piece of work trying to coach. Like, I had the skill, but I had a terrible attitude and the sense of entitlement that I would carry around on the diamond. And when I'm trying to manage people now, I really try to pull from those moments. And, one of the moments that I remember often is on the Bozeman Bucks, our coach, Coach Mitch, had a depth chart on his whiteboard in his office. And there's Jeff right at the very bottom, always. And I wouldn't say he was, I mean, I think as with most leaders, myself included, I'm not trying to be the nice, friendly guy, be the buddy. Um, I'm trying to be firm and fair and also create an environment of which everyone in it wins. And prior to that knowing and looking at myself in the mirror and trying to understand like why is this happening, and knowing it's me, having gone through a few years of this, um it's difficult to want to be firm and fair and also have a heart of sympathy where it's like, I know where you're at. Like, it's easy to roll in on Tuesday and sleep through Monday and put us all in jeopardy. Like, having to terminate that employee recently is just like having to share a table with him and go like, this is not okay. And then I had to literally have a script in front of me because a past version of myself just wanted to lay it out, be like, F this is why you are, instead of we and I and us. It's like going back to Coach Mitch though, in that depth chart, um, as anxious and emotional as I was as a baseball player under his guidance, he always made room to sit down, and he never made it subjective. It was always an objective approach. Jeffrey, here's why this isn't working. Here's why you're not playing. If you adjust if you show up for practice early, like we can begin to afford you playing time. And again, it was never a skill issue. It was just having attitude that showed up with the desire to be wrong, not the desire to be wrong, the desire to produce for the team. That was my issue. I was always trying to prove everyone else that I was great. And moving that idea into my management and leadership style, and being the inverse of it now, where it's like really looking at the business as a whole and seeing all the parts for what they are in their most objective way, and then being able to tie in that emotional aspect and have emotion and empathy for people going through things, yet too, to understand like what's really at stake here. Like for me, this is to some degree a way out, like to get out of the system that I'm constantly or was constantly fighting. And then two, to step into a form of self that can recognize the gift that this is, the people that support it. And the people that support it, much like what Coach Mitch taught me, they need systems, they need clarity, they need the things that I deem as boring and want to fight against, and the authority that creates and the friction in me that toils is so much work, man. Like, I don't know, you get it. I mean, you have folks on the road all the time driving $80,000 vehicles, and it's slick ice outside in Big Sky Canyon, and you read an article that morning about a semi T-boning. It's like, okay, I need as competent a person as I can in this driver's seat. And if they don't know the rules and regulations that Mountain Mule is, it's a free for all. One of my favorite Instagram videos is, do you follow Dale Brisby, the cowboy?
I know him, yeah.
He's hilarious. He's got a reel on there where he's riding his horse and the horse just starts bucking, and he's joking, of course, but he's like, sometimes you just got to let her do what she wants. And it's like, oh man, I think that's how I'm running my business. I'm just letting everyone kind of dictate and influence how we should run this thing. And it's never the case. Like having Nick as a partner is extremely important, because without these standards and practices, like this business is just going to be the Jeff show for as long as ever. And in the last 2 years, our growth has been able to expedite because of these SOPs and these regulations that we create. And I mean, to think, if I have to continue to ask you to put your uniform shirt on or use the tools that we have, like, it's a pretty easy disqualifier for me to learn, like, okay, this was a bad hire. And then two, to look at us and go, okay, where did we mess up on our onboarding? Because if we didn't drill this home right out of the gate, of course, like, they're not going to know what to do. it's frustrating.
And I think it's a Hormozy thing. And this is just a simple thing, but I think of that like to the SOPs and the boring stuff. And I get what you're saying because boring isn't sexy, and who doesn't want, sexy fun, but boring is boring. Nobody cares about it, but it's the thing that keeps a business functioning and reliable.
Mm,
And the Hormozy thing is, if it isn't written down, just just assume right away that you never said it.
mm,
And
mm,
that's the SOP is it's written down, it's here. Is it on the wall in the shop? Is it on the wall in the office? And it's not, people don't want to not listen, but we got so much, we're inundated all day from a million things. So, those simple SOPs, this is written down, this is the protocol. This is boring, but it also saves lives,
mm.
the team's lives, the passengers' lives, people on the road. And it's just those simple standards that are actually the foundation of a really well run business.
Right.
And
And what are you really trying to build? Like, if we want a mess and we want all the cows running around all the time, like, don't put up the fence. But in order to keep everything together and wrangle those cows, it's like, yeah, put in the fence, understand why we show up at 6 to feed them, why we turn water in the winter, like all the things need to be understood. And it's, I mean, when we were chatting with your friend Cole, it was a lot of, business is the
shout
best.
out to Cole Conrad.
Yes, sir, Cole. Like, business is the best therapy, and it's so frustrating at times, because all of my weakest parts continue to show. And the part of business too that I've learned through the years is you can't just run away. Like, the fight or flight is no longer a decision. You have to stay so grounded in every moment. And as much as my emotion wants to come up and express itself, like, I'm managing a business and I'm managing me, and having to do both all the time is a lot of work. Yet, like, that is the sacrifice I think entrepreneurs have to accept eventually, is like, yeah, it's a lot of work, and no, I'm not going to complain about it or be the victim. I will, though, stand in this power that I'm creating for myself, and power being one of groundedness and not of influence. And the influence comes because of the groundedness. But to manage humans is such a task. And I just heard the McDonald's CEO say this the other day: no one will care about your career as much as you do. So how can we then teach our team to care as much as we do? And I've yet to figure that out. I really have no idea. And like, the basics of what it takes to have a job, uh, for a lot of people, is a lot of work. Like, having to show up 15 minutes ahead of time. By the way, I can't have you post some of this, dude. I can't. Like,
I got so much editing to do.
yeah, sorry, man. When we get into the when we pivot into radon, I don't know if this will make sense or not, but
I'm going to put some of this in there.
I'll trust you. It's a lot of work though, man, because I don't know, like, trying to teach somebody their own reason why doesn't feel like my job, but it's part of it, right? Like, what do you do? Like, seriously, like, I don't.
This is in process. And I was listening back, this woman that I had on, Megan's her name, Wayfinders Leadership. She was saying that
She does those 6-month courses.
that might be Kelly that you're thinking of. I had like 4 different people that do different variations of leadership in the last couple of months for whatever reason. Maybe the world was trying to tell me something. But she was saying that she'll ask a founder or CEO or people in the company to just try to why are they doing what they're doing, and what's kind of the meaning. And she said you'd be surprised how many people have never asked themselves that. And then how many some are like, oh, now that I've asked myself that and I've realized this, I got to leave this job. This job is not aligned at all with what I want to do. And so I don't know. I think to an extent it's our duty to at least try to invoke that. And even if that ends up being like, hey, I was really inspired by your sense of purpose, and it made me see my lack of purpose and my lack of purpose in this job specifically.
Mm.
So sorry, I'm out of here, but thanks for the inspiration. Or, you might just have a A player that was a sleeper. You're like, whoa, you woke something up in me.
Mm.
Like, I don't know, something woke up in me somewhere along this journey. And that wasn't my initial intention. Like, initially, I was like, similar to what you were saying in a sense, I'm trying to escape this system a little bit. And I grew up very free on a farm, and we didn't have employers, and we worked our ass off, but we also had a lot of freedom. So I'm trying to recreate that, but I didn't until I got older and a little bit wiser and talked to more people. I'm like, man, there's got to be the meaning. There's got to be I got to be pulled towards that and not just be pushing myself and killing myself every day just because the money. Because I don't know, it's really cliche, and you almost have to experience it before you can believe it. And I haven't even completely experienced it, to be like frank. I'm not rolling around in money, but it's pretty hollow.
Yeah.
But I don't, to answer your question, I don't know, but let me know when you figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in 4 years in, man, I mean, what you've been able to accomplish is amazing. And I just heard Elon say this the other day, but the consequence of quality work is money. So if you're doing something of quality, like naturally you will make money. To get out of that thinking though, one, like for you to have come to that understanding this quickly in your business is such a gift.
I feel like it took forever.
I mean, 4 years.
I wish I figured it like, so technically it's been over 5, but it's like, I feel like I've been actually running my business for the last 12 to 18 months. I'm like, oh, I actually do understand what owning and running a business is. For those first 3.5, very formative, important time. But to be honest, I felt like I was spinning in circles. I was doing everything myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was the dispatch. I was the bookkeeper. I was the driver. I was the maintenance guy. And I was too afraid to hire someone, too afraid to delegate. And it was great. But at some point I was like, all right, it's not like I can't scale something when I'm the only person doing everything. Like I'm at the limitation. I'm going to have to learn how to have teams and,
Yeah. Yeah. And then too, to help it shine a bigger light on the mission. Like, why are we doing this? And what does that mission really require? Right. So we have a fellow right now who's really interested in bringing in some cash into the business because our mission is to save 1 million lives. And prior to him hearing that, I think it was just a money game for him. He's coming off of Wall Street and he's got some influence out in New York, and found Montana his home a couple years ago, with his heart being really deep into the idea of conservation, land and animal. But the second he heard that we want to save 1 million lives, you could see his eyes open up a little bit. He's like, oh, so this is more than money. And our business is in a position where, honestly, taking in cash just seems frivolous. It's like, why? Why do we need more money right now? Because we're making enough to feed us all as well as protect us for a few months at a time. And the younger part of myself wouldn't have second guessed this at all. And so I'm getting a lot of wisdom coming full circle right now. But if our mission is to save 1 million lives, I don't know how many years I have on this earth. And it's not, my life isn't designed by me. And so if this cash allows us to expedite that plan from several years to maybe a few, then irregardless of when I leave, I know that the impact that we left was all targeted towards that. And we got to save a multiple more because of this bit of money. And I think that is probably the biggest gift I've gotten in getting to found this business, is that I've become more aware to the importance and influence that money has of us as far as our security and needs. It's like, I'm not going to stare at a tree if my cabin's cold and not cut it down. Like, yeah, we need firewood. Why am I fighting this urge in me not to want to cut firewood? And then to know though that like we need to keep the cabin warm. And now that we're bringing on more people, like that has its own requirements. And then now we want to save 1 million lives. Okay, all these things are compounding to the point where if I don't accept the help that's trying to help me, then I'm just ignorant and silly. And at what point, like, what is one willing to sacrifice in order to actually get that mission? You know, one of my favorite examples is Google's DeepMind. They bought DeepMind 2011. I just watched a documentary on YouTube, so it's kind of fresh but kind of stale. But when they got acquired by Google, in the documentary, the founder talks about the the acquisition amount. It was for $400 million, and the founder is by no means he is every bit an entrepreneur, but he is so much more a scientist than he is a businessman. And his point was, I would rather take the 400 million, knowing the obvious that it's undervalued, and to know that it's going to get us closer to the goal. It's going to allow us to research with the funds we actually need. And that idea of sacrifice to me is so wholesome. It's like it ties so deep into the mission. Like I'm 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 taking back my power when I know that money is not moving this decision. Like it's allowing me to stay grounded in what we're doing and the why. And it strengthens the why. And I think for those that are in our leadership circle, it strengthens the reason of the why in them so that they can know, okay, Jeff's really about this. Like, yes, our profitability and our margins are great. We're in construction. It's like a natural byproduct of what we do. And so if we can continue to do this in a quality fashion, and if we want to save 1 million lives, and I'm only being able to save one a day, then can we do 3 a day? Can we have a better tool that allows us to diagnose the situation at hand and give them a clearer picture? And this money actually allows us to be a bit more moderate in our pricing. You know, we can actually shrink margins a little bit and offer ourselves up to more people who maybe can't afford the tickets we're selling at right now. And I think eventually as entrepreneurs, we like the mission that you've been able to find yourself in as a storyteller. I, I think too many want to force it. I think it's like, if I can do this, I'll paint a picture of maybe what I think it is. And I think faking it till you make it is kind of endearing at some point. It's kind of misleading in others, but at least you're starting with something. And then I think what's most admirable about the mission that you have right now is being that collective, that resource for people where, you know, we live in a world of lies. Like everything feels misleading at times. You can't turn on the TV, the radio, or Spotify without hearing something that, at least in me, I have to question, like, is this honest? Because like even going to doctors now, like being a professional myself, I'm still questioning my doctor. And like, do you really know what you're talking about? Like, I know continued ed's a thing, but I was a student too. I still am. And I sometimes fly through the reels just to get through them at the end. Like, are you really tied to the mission that you started with? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, to back up, when we were talking about it being boring and you were saying, you know, like, are the cows all staying in? Or are they running around? The part that's really tricky as a human in 2025 or whatever year it is when you're listening to this, the reel that everyone's going to watch is the cows running down the road, the cows getting out. That's a fun, sexy chaos. We're chasing cows. We're on the ranch. We're in the Yellowstone show. So that's sort of the image that's portrayed to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's sexy. The Yellowstone TV show is sexy. It's a fun show, sure, but it's like that's portrayed as fun. But then when you get back to the boring is the order. Is the cows are in, the cows are fed, and then when you talk to, so many things being lies, that's, again, it goes back to we're really enticed to lie, to be doing fun, sexy, crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it's really tough as a human. That's where I'm sympathetic, is like, yeah, I feel it in me. I feel it, like that pull to do that thing that more people will get more attention. But I don't know, it also goes against morals. And I think for a lot of times we're in between that intersection.
Yeah, I agree. And I think since maturing into this version of myself a little bit, I've who I want to be celebrated by is much different than what I think the world wants to be celebrated by. And those that I admire most, yeah, if you peel back the curtain, it is so boring. And if it was chaos and vanity driven and all these other things, like that person doesn't get a beautiful wife and 3 kids and several businesses that supply and support all of that, and a team that stands by them through thick and thin, and being able to go through those worst moments like COVID. Like, boring is sexy. And I just don't think the world has recognized that yet. At least the world that I'm seeing it as, where it's, we're constantly being influenced by so much and being fed a bunch of misinformation. And for me, business has become like the Trojan horse of truth. It's like what I try and ingrain our team in is like, we are going to be boring, and this will be a vehicle to shine a light as far or as close as we can for the world to recognize that in truth, like, we are setting ourselves free. And this boring business, boring being the sexiest word in my Rolodex now, because it grants safety to those that we serve. It adds clarity for people in our business and team that are trying to find a sense of purpose. It, yeah, I'm learning so much in life right now when it comes to like, what do I really want? Like, if I strip back all the layers of life and think about me for a minute, I don't know if this business is going to fulfill all of those wishes, but it is giving me the strongest foundation to begin pursuing them with freedom, and to do that and to let that be the sexy part of my life, and sexy be so self-defined. Like, I've gotten to a point in my life with my mind where I know that the safest place for me on this planet is between my ears, and I don't fight that voice anymore. I listen to him. I bring him closer.
Say that again.
The sexiest place to me in this world is between my ears.
Was it sexy or safest?
Safest.
Yeah.
But safe is sexy.
We've said sexy too many times in this episode. But that's very well said. I like that.
Yeah. It's it comes with a lot of growth, though. I think being the type of human that I am, and the plan that God had for me and still does, is initially it was really frustrating, because I was really wanting to gain an audience from the world that I thought was supporting me. And back to your point, I think the world celebrates chaos more than it does standardization. And as much of me as that wants to be the artist in this world, like, back to my point, I can't be with a crumbled foundation. Like, I really have to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and know that this is my truth, and this is not meant for anybody else. Like, for me, that is so important. And the light that God has given me to shine on others is like really faint right now. But if I can compound honesty every day with the Trojan horse that Bozeman Radon is for us and our team, then eventually the applause that I seek is going to be from people that I really admire. Like, and those that I admire, man, are stoic, quiet men and women who they've found a form of love that stems beyond the word. It's like ingrained in their bones, and it's uncomfortable in so many moments. And they're willing to sit through those crucial conversations to know that they're anchoring back to the thing they hold dear, which is love, and who they decide to express that with. And for me in my life in this moment, business is the one vehicle that allows me to hold that love and light with the utmost authenticity. And I can't go backwards on it. And have you ever given up something or lost something that hindsight later showed you, like, man, I messed up?
Maybe, but I think I have this chronic optimistic mindset that I try to employ so I probably, yes. And if I think of anything, I'll say it, but I'll reframe it just so that I am not holding on to it anymore.
Mm.
But
Mm.
the gentleman I told you I was speaking with, Dr. Gene Tynes, he was saying, and you'd love this. I can't wait to send you the episode when it comes out. But he was talking about you get to these points in your life where there's two doors, or you're at a crossroads, and life is kind of telling you, like, you're being called that way or pulled that way, and you might go the wrong way because of fear, because you're like, man, that's too much of a change. That's too big of a pivot. Because he was talking about his pivot into dentistry from what he was doing before, and he says, and then later you might realize though that you did go through that wrong door, but it also took you somewhere else. And it's like now you really know. Okay, now I'm at the next crossroad. This is even more important. But because I took that wrong one, I now have the wisdom to take this one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably happened a lot of times. There's things I'm doing now that I can look and say, yep, I could have done this 3 or 4 years ago. I could have hired guys 3 or 4 years ago, but I don't know, I wasn't conditioned enough. I was too pig-headed. So yes, to answer your question, but I can't think of somewhere specific.
Yeah, I think the point I'm driving home is the power of perspective. I've had many moments like that where I allowed others' influence to kind of come into my own mind and make decisions for me and think that, oh, if I keep them happy, at least they'll stick around and this thing won't. But the ability to go back to Bozeman Radon and recognize it for what it is, the perspective I have of being a leader now and owning this business and giving something to Bozeman that it really needs as far as a quality contractor and a company that leads by truth and example. In my past businesses and owning local demo and the moving company and estate sale and all the other things I did, like a lot of it was training and practice, and it was necessary for me to be able to have the perspective I do now to go and look back and go, okay, all these lessons I learned, I get to take into this one. And I need to be able to anchor in the truth that Bozeman Radon is, because it's being built off of a foundation of truth. The perspective of letting go or losing something, I'm no longer trying to soothe that part of my soul where I'm trying to prove to somebody else that I can do it, that I'm smart enough, that I'm strong enough to go through all the BS that business can throw at a guy. And then to sit in a leadership moment in Bozeman Radon, whether I'm trying to explain a system or the effects radon has on individuals in their homes, or trying to coach and mentor one of our team members into why we do things these certain ways, that perspective of going back to local demo and being able to understand like why it was the chaos that it was. On the outside, we were every bit sexy, to bring sex back up into things.
It'd been a couple minutes.
It's almost about time. It really helps me address like what's necessary in our business, and to know that this is a gift not worth squandering. And the passion that I had in local demo as an artist was being able to brand and position ourselves in marketing in moments that made us look more than we were. And I was absolutely a misleading entrepreneur in every way, where if we would get a deposit on a project, I was more interested in branding our trucks and trailers than I was in investing in the right tools. And it was a me show. It was all a me. It was all a Jeff show. All that to say, like when I sold local demo in 22, and I sat with 2 years of some of the deepest depression I ever had. I didn't seek out the help or mentorship from my friends and family. And I felt like I gave up a child. Like I spent 5 years building this business and got it to a position where it was cranking in cash. I mean, granted, all that cash was going back to pay debt, but it never really had any foundation. It was built on sand. And although the community thought we were doing great, like internally, I knew it was a mess. Like there was nothing here that was standardized in the way that Bozeman Radon is. There was nothing here of foundation where people could rely on us to come in and have a job or service their home. And granted, we were able to close contracts and all this because I have a way with words. But translating that now into Bozeman Radon, it's like the fewer words I say closes more contracts. The the environment we create is so much more welcoming than that of my past businesses. And to think that I will find passion outside of the boring brings me so much optimism. Because have you ever seen those photos of guys that, like the before and after of going to war? It's like they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and then they come back 2 years later and they just have the deepest pockets in their eyes. Like, look at some past photos of me. Like, the last 8, 9 years of business, I was living with rainbow-colored glasses, man. Like, oh, the world isn't that hard. Oh, I can hire. It's no problem. Come on. Like, to really sit and understand what business demands of a man or woman is, I think that's like step one in business ownership. It's like, understand the world that you're getting into is not the one that's painted on Instagram. It really demands more.
To back way up, I was thinking this, you were asking me, and depending on where this edited piece of masterpiece that I'll put together, depending on where I cut in, you were asking me if me and my fiance, if we go through some, some deeper stuff together, or we're questioning, our why or our purpose, or just more personal things that, this is something when you're talking about, say, approval, and you're calling it the Jeff show, and, what do people think and how does this look? I learned this lesson indirectly with my fiance, and to date, I think it's so valuable. One of the most valuable things in years of dating prior to meeting her. I would meet this girl, meet that girl. And there's always something, maybe clearly they didn't work out because they didn't work out for obvious reasons other than I'm engaged to my lovely fiance now. And I would meet them and I would think, I'm not sure, maybe they seem nice, something. And then I'd be like, maybe I'll introduce her to my sisters and see what they think, and my mother, or my brother, my friends. And it was so interesting, which I realized in hindsight, is I was looking for their approval of this girl. And maybe if I had their approval, that would give me enough approval because there was something that wasn't sitting right with me. When I met my fiance, and this is the only reason I had to go through this to realize, is that I didn't care. I was like, man, that'll be great if my sisters get along with her, my mother likes her, my friends, but I don't care, in the most respectful way to them, because this girl's amazing and this is so great. And I always try to think about how that lesson, applies to business and the rest of life, because if I'm looking for the approval of everyone else, there must be something in it that's not sitting right with me. Once I get to that point, and I can speak to this podcast about it, and that's why I get excited and passionate about it, but it's out here for the world. It's an expression of you and your business, me and my business, everyone else that's a part of it, sitting down or listening. And I'm indifferent to how many people watch it, because that's not the point. Like, the point is, it's something that resonates with me. It sits right in my purpose. And it seems like when you talk about Bozeman Radon, you're now so driven, mission driven, that it's not about, let me brand the next thing so, I can get enough approval. So I don't know if that all makes sense or to what you're saying, but it was such a valuable and fun lesson to learn.
It's the best lesson.
Yeah. Once it lines up because it's very fun to be like, I don't care what people think, I do whatever I want, but we do as humans. But when something resonates at that level and it hits, like something locks in, you're like, all right, the point is to express this now. It's not to get the approval. And it's a fun, fortunate place to be as a business owner and a person, if you can get there.
Yeah. And to recognize one's own self-worth. Like, I am worth all of this, like the discomfort, the unsettling moments with employees or clients or all these things. And to be able to set a boundary that you don't have to justify. Like, my friends don't ever ask me, like, why is Jeff a hermit? Or why is he running it this way? Like, they trust me enough to know that there's reason now. And the mission too with Bozeman Radon is just checked every box for me internally. Like, it provides for me and those I love most, with food, water, and shelter, and has allowed abundance to begin to introduce itself into my life. but we're here to save 1 million lives. And radon being that silent killer in your home is something that you typically don't ever learn until you're buying a home or you hear it on the radio or you catch one of our advertisements. And to know that for me as a business owner, I'm giving impact to a community I love through the service of radon mitigation and mold remediation, and knowing that we're literally saving lives. Like, this isn't a vanity business. This isn't something I seek for applause or approval from others. Like, I know that when I go to bed at night, irregardless of how the project went or not, like, the solution we provided is saving lives. And that home, so it's what is it? Homeowners typically own homes, I think, for an average of 5 years, if I remember that right. And so every 5 years, a new family is moving into this property. And if this property sticks around 100 years, a lot of homes in Bozeman are 130 years old. So we've had 20 families go through some of these homes. And all of those families are going to live a healthier, better life because of the work we did. And one of my favorite kind of examples of living a selfless life is through a concept the military introduces to its new recruits, which is called the gray man. And the gray man is a person who does what's required without the need of recognition. And what a selfless way to live, to think like, no, I'm just going to do the right thing. I don't need Tim's approval. I'm not seeking the love of my dad anymore through this act of faith or action. It's like, nope, what we're doing will likely you'll never get the attaboy. And like, we get homeowners that are super stoked all the time. But it's not what we're starting this job or project for and seeking. Like, we're all of our team members know that when we leave this project, we leave it better than we found it. And the true gift outside of the obvious of financial gain that we have is knowing that our souls have touched another and we're able to save a physical life. We had a client recently in Belgrade that she's owned the home for a couple of years. And the last year she started having a real hard time sleeping. She started getting kind of asthmatic, itchy breathing. And then her shoulders and upper back were constantly sore. And science is yet to really nail down the ability to track radon poisoning in a human. Most medical professionals right now kind of run through a checklist, and pulmonologists will ask you questions. Pulmonologist is a lung doctor, and they'll go, okay, do you smoke? Like, are you working in mines? Like, da 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 da. And they just run through a checklist to understand what can we take away that may not be radon poisoning, but they're not able to really narrow down that. But the symptoms that she shared were kind of the first time with a client that we've had where I could really potentially, like, not as a doctor, but kind of validate, like, I think you're going through radiation poisoning. It is a silent killer. Her home ended up testing close to 40 parts per curie. The EPA in the US says that our home is safe. Its air quality is safe at levels of 4 parts per curie. And so a test of 4 of radon, according to the EPA, is safe. Every test of 4, so if we look at increments of 4 moving up, the EPA states is 8 cigarettes worth of impact on our lungs if exposed in a 24-hour period. So we go back to COVID and you're breathing your home's air in constantly. If her home's testing at near 40 and we break that math down, we think that's, about every 4 is, so there's 10 parts of 4 in that 40 test. 10 times 8 is 80. She's been smoking 80 cigarettes a day unknowingly for the last couple of years in her home. And it's met with frustration always, because they have every right and they're warranted to want to blame other people for this. And those people being the home inspector, the sellers that maybe misled the radon test, the buyer and seller's agent, the realtors that didn't maybe uphold those inspectors and the current owners to that promise. So when we're dealing with radon, we take it with the utmost sincerity, like, irregardless of the political environment that stands. It's important to us because that woman now sleeps better. her marriage, I bet, is stronger than ever because she's not having to fight this pain in her body. And whoever lives in that home next is going to confidently step into it knowing like, hey, our crawl space is super clean and tight and dry. We have a radon system that actually works. And I don't have to worry about my children potentially breathing in a toxic gas that's invisible. So it's a big deal to us. It is so beyond money. And again, what we do is pretty particular and it's super niche, and it has some intricacies that we're required to uphold ourselves to, especially when it comes to the diagnosis side of things, the design. With radon systems, a lot of things can come outside of that where you have maybe a fan that's inadequate or it's loud. You've got poorer quality products anybody can buy off of Amazon that will maybe mitigate for a moment, but it's not something of quality that can live a lifetime. And so when people invest in us, they're investing in what I would call the obvious, which is like a quality product that's going to last 15 to 20 years as far as the fan's concerned. They're investing in a warranty so they can further feel protected and knowing that if anything were to come up, we're going to come back in the next 7 years and replace it for free. And then they're getting to work alongside folks that have lived in Bozeman or Montana for more than a couple of decades. And I found that the way that I approach business, which is a little outside of the norm, when you're working with a small business, especially a contractor, I find it so important that they can trust the hand they're shaking. Like they want to know that the guy coming in, he may not be on the tools, but he's directing the team that's running the project. He's making sure that post project, every marker and metric we have in our business, that those boxes are being checked for quality control. And then, I might touch a client 5, 6 times and we test after the fact. And if we fail that test, which happens rarely, but it does happen, we get to go back in and uphold to our word and correct what's necessary. And so radon is a gift that God has given me. I feel constantly compelled to reiterate the importance of its mitigation in our homes and our businesses as well. And then to get to teach people the value of it in our team, like warms my heart the most. As poor of a human manager as I continue to qualify myself as, I believe all of our team members recognize the passion that I have for saving lives. And often that is enough to encourage them to continue to show up strong and do the things that are right.
I'm going to say I disagree with you on your statement about as poor of a human manager as you are.
I'm learning. And your optimistic mind, of course, would say that.
So if we go beyond the process of radon and installing it, how'd you get into this and what's your story?
Yeah. I've got a really fun story. I think it's fun now. Of course, it wasn't fun in my 20s, but
those are usually the fun. They're always fun to listen to.
Yeah.
And look back on.
I thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur when I was 20. And a lot of that was wanting to prove to the world that I could be smart. I was raised by an entrepreneur. My father is Dr. Jeff Squire. He set a standard in this community when it comes to true care. And a part of my soul knew that I could reach that as well. So in my 20s, I started a cleaning company out of North Dakota after college, failed as strongly as anyone could. I just had, a bit like you said, my head over my skis and was just pouring everything into wanting to grow. And growth to me, being raised on construction sites, looked like the lifted trucks, the trailers, every kind of employee for any kind of role. And I won't say I was taught incorrectly. I think I was taught in a way that maybe fulfilled those men that were my mentors, who've since maybe have failed or succeeded. But so yeah, started business in my 20s, failed, was in and out of jobs in the hotel industry for a while. And then at the age of 27, a woman came into my life and opened my eyes to myself. And with that began a journey that I guess I began to gain trust into myself, that I was not only smart enough to do the things that other people were doing every day in business. But I had worth. I thought that I am worth the freedom that business has to offer. And so at 27, I went to New York. I did some tech stuff in business and again failed pretty quickly. After a very short term in Manhattan, moved back to Bozeman and became the 27-year-old sleeping on his dad's couch. Had a job cleaning windows, just trying to get by. And then for about 6 months, I would lay my head down every night and I would ask my subconscious to show me what I need to see, not what I want to see. Because I was very, I would say, entitled. I was very imaginative. I had big dreams that were never met with real work. Real work being getting your hands involved and not just delegating. After 6 months of that mantra, I had a dream that I still remember the smell, the detail, the colors that were involved, the people that were in it. And I started cleaning up dog waste. And so I got a 5-gallon bucket and a pooper scooper, borrowed a buddy's truck, and just started going around to homes and HOAs offering dog waste cleanup. And that was the beginning of what would then become local demolition. And so it was Bozeman Poop. That was the name of the company, right? It was like me and God. And I ran that for a while, and I just started trading in paper clips, and that metaphor being, I'm trading up. And so every season, I guess, and for some it was literal months, but I went from dog waste to dog waste and junk removal. I then rebranded to a brand called Local, with the concept being if you're going to hire local. And so dog waste, junk removal. I then stripped dog waste and teamed up with a company called Cube. He was one of a few who carried a license for transporting household items, so moving company. So we became Junk and Moving. And then while we're in the midst of that, me and my maybe 2 or 3 employees, in an effort to give them more hours and to try and grow our business, I would begin including some of these like surgical demolitions. So you're doing a kitchen remodel, you're doing a bathroom remodel, you're gutting your home to do a full home remodel. We would come in and do the demolition aspect. My business partner, Nick, looked at our P&L one September. So this would have been September 2018. And he saw of the 3 services we primarily hosted, that demolition was probably hosting 25% of our gross revenue. And it took a third of the effort. And so on a whim, as a man with no children, basically overnight, I told every client I was helping, hey, we're getting rid of moving and junk. I'm going all in on demolition. And it was me, 2 employees, a single cab 7.3, and a dump trailer I borrowed from whoever gave me one.
Great truck.
The best. And I'm so upset. I had 3 of them. I sold them. I'm so upset at that. But we pivoted directly into that. The owner of BTI Log Home Care had some property off Jackrabbit that he allowed us to go in as our shop. And so I slept on the concrete floor for 2 years building that demolition company. It was called Local Demo. We went from, so it would have been September 2018 again. So when I changed my mind. And by December of 2018, so just a few months into it, we went from 2 to 12 employees. We were taking on jobs in the Yellowstone Club for large contracts, and I had no idea what I was doing. I invested all of my money in the wrong things, anything that made us look fancy, but didn't allow our employees to succeed to the best of their abilities. One of my favorite sayings is, a mechanic is only as good as his toolbox. And I was more, the desire in me wanted our image to be seen as great, and I had less of a desire to actually equip us with the tools we needed. But needless to say, I spent every hour on that business, sleeping on the floor. And from 2 to 12 employees, we ended up growing it over 2 years. We ended up doing about $1 million our second year. And I had an itch I wanted to scratch. And that itch was, I wanted to be seen as smart, and being seen as smart meant selling a business. So in that 2.5 year of Local Demo, we were doing enough revenue in a week to support 10 to 12 people plus 2 managers. I branched that business off and created a sub brand called Local Salvage, where we would take in high-end materials that we would often pull and try to sell those back to the community at secondhand prices. honestly, the business was great. Looking back at it, it was branded well. The reputation we carried was amazing. But as a, I guess, 30-year-old at that time, uh, and a single man, which I think is important to state, it felt very self-fulfilling. It felt like, hey, you're making all this money for who? You don't get to go, enjoy Europe with a girl. You don't get to go do these things with your team that you're wanting to, because I carried a selfish desire in it, and ended up selling that company to a local HVAC company here in town, made a few bucks. And as my story tends to carry, I completely messed up the sale, the liquidation of everything. I actually ended up owing money on a business I was trying to sell. And it was cool. I mean, I got to go through it. I got to see on the front lines how to completely do everything wrong when it comes to selling a business. And then it afforded me, I still had some money. Don't get me wrong. Like, we had a few bucks in the bank. I say we as in me and my dog, Bart. So we went and enjoyed the US. We went and took a big old road trip. I bought a nice car. I did the things that folks who sell businesses do, but I've never been so low in my life. Low in the sense that I went from I sent having what I would call like an addict's mind. That stimulus was so important. I went from being worried about 12 people's lives, the quality of a project, if that truck got T-boned, if we've got gas in it, to me and my own problems. And it is the best gift God could have given me, because that season of solace allowed me to meet me and not run away from my problems, really embrace the emotions that come with learning myself. Uh, After those 2 years, I was kind of in between. I guess it wasn't 2 years; it was a year. And sorry if my mind wants to like exaggerate a little bit, because it all seems like it took so long. But after that bit of time sitting with myself and God, I had a dream, and I was on the front of a boat, and I pointed out and I yelled radon. And I woke up the next day. I texted my buddy Nick, who's my business partner. I said, "What do you think about radon?" And the next day he bought a radon test with the 2 pennies he had, because both of us aren't rolling in it then. And we got a test, spent a couple $100 to get a Wix website and brand kind of put together, and then just started getting in reps, deploying tests, understanding the true, no two homes are the same. And so you've got to really understand the structural side of things, the engineering that goes into some of these homes, to make sense of how that airflow is entering the home. So it took about a year for me to get enough reps in to feel confident enough to go into bigger projects, higher risk. And now it pleases me more than anything to say that we're the highest rated radon company in the Southwest Montana. We serve about 600 clients a year with the capacity we have from staff to equipment. And I get to own this business as a steward of God. And when I say that, I mean it, the idea of a gift, I don't neglect anymore. I thought that local demo was just a thing I would do that would then, I don't know, maybe protect me for a future financially. But what I didn't know I was trying to create was a piece of art that I could show off to the world, that was an expression of not only my best parts, but the qualities that God had imparted to me. And so with this business, there's extreme care in everything we do. You don't sell good businesses. It's kind of a quote I picked up. And this is a great business. This is a business that will go through the woes of life, the economic downturns that we may come up against. But having that wisdom from my past business to pour into this has allowed us to create systems and practices that protect those that are with us, protect us from unseen scenarios like COVID, but to really give us an opportunity to grow organically. And growing organically is important to me now, because I don't care how I'm seen. I'm so invested in the quality of the product we create that growth will be a byproduct of how good we are at that. And I'll go to my grave saying that. Like, I hate buying things that are poor quality and you invest all this money, or you spend $12 on a charging cord for your phone and you're trying to figure out how it's losing power while it's charging. Those little things, I think, if we take a step back as entrepreneurs who are, I think, more responsible for the change the world sees than we're given credit for, we need to have a face-to-face with ourselves to go, is this thing I'm doing quality? Is it serving at a degree of excellence I can brag about? Because I'm not lying. You would have walked into our demolition shop at one point. I was so embarrassed to have anyone show up to that thing, let alone a project. You show up to a demolition project and you got mounds of material everywhere and nails shooting out. If that client walks in and steps on that, I don't care if it's a dirty job, if it takes simpletons to do it to a caliber that you can show off. So, yeah, now that Radon's in place, I guess it was August 18, 23 was when we filed our LLC license with the state. I've never been more proud. I'm very, what do I want to say? I'm very particular about who we let in. We use a company called Dunzo. The women that are a part of that executive assistant company are top tier. They're often mothers, and they bring a service to our clients that I was not able to fulfill. And just every aspect of it has extreme thought against it. But as an entrepreneur, I don't like to see opportunity go too far away from me. So I tend to spring on things pretty quickly. But the wisdom I'd gained from the last about decade of business has allowed me to at least have enough confidence in the decisions I'm making that support more than me.
Okay, I got three questions I'm going to try to remember. I'm going to start with the first one. Back to the dream. Was there two? There was two dreams or one dream that spurred this, the radon?
So,
because you said it started with the dog poop.
Yeah.
Was there a dream that started that and then a second dream?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the first dream, I'm going back to show me what I need to see, not what I want to see. It was a 4-series dream, and every chapter in that dream has showed itself in the real world. And I have friends, and maybe, like Matt Ryan of Bozeman Real Estate, and he's a good buddy. He pokes at me every now and again, and he goes, "Oh, look at Jeff, the guy living by dreams." It's like, it's not as cliche as I think the world perceives it. I've always wanted support in a way that, I didn't get as a kid. My parents did an amazing job. I was a stellar athlete. I did okay at school. I was able to, some women invited me into the life that really changed my identity. But I never had someone really rallying for me, really pushing me to a degree where it's like, I see more, I want more, and I'm not going to undermine you as a person in doing so. And so that dream that was fed by that quote of show me what I need to see, there was an emotion behind it of complete desperation. And my belief is that emotional desire was finally met with an honest ask, which is like, I want to be the best version of me. And that dream was, I hope he watches this. I doubt it, but so the valedictorian of my high school was up on the second floor of a home, and all he said was, "That's a great idea." And that great idea was dog waste. It was something. I then jumped in the car that was in his driveway and I drove down Big Sky Canyon. And as I'm in the driver's seat, I start veering into the river, and the valedictorian, his name is Brian, he grabs the steering wheel, and as I'm getting into the river, he says, "You can always correct." And so I'm back on the road. As I exit the canyon, I meet Nick. And this is years before I meet Nick. And we're in Vegas, and Nick and I are both from Vegas. And so I'm following him and gambling and all these things. And if anyone watching this actually spends a second investigating what dreams mean, business is gambling. And so that metaphor in the dream of me being in Vegas felt like I was finally stepping into gambling, and I had support from Nick. As I leave Vegas, I start walking through an Anytime Fitness. And prior to Bozeman's change, we had one over by what's now Hobby Lobby. We had an Anytime Fitness there, and they've since moved off 7th. But I was in there working out. And looking back at it now, I was in training, so going from dog waste to demolition were those years of me going in the gym and really getting my reps in as a business owner.
We might have crossed paths there.
I bet we did, man. I was, I thought I was Mr. Macho.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going in with.
We probably sized each other up regularly.
Oh, man, I always think I'm more muscular than I am, but spent every day I could, and I had in that season, I actually didn't have a personal vehicle, so every time we'd have a job that day, my employees would take my truck, and so I would walk to the gym. And in the dream, as I'm going through the gym, I exit the dream, I get down on a knee, and I tie a pair of these boots, these Red Wing boots. And as I'm tying them, I look to my right, and there's little Jeff, little 7-year-old Jeff. And to save face and not express any vulgar language, I just asked him to be quiet. And if you've ever dove into like emotional healing or anything like that, the concept of inner child comes up a lot. It's pretty popular now, but I truly think that spending time with Jeff Jr. and not trying to quiet him, but he was more in control of my ego than I thought. He was pushing me towards habits that I would deem I had control over, but that thirst, that urge would come up and I would succumb again to whatever bad habit I had in that season. And then as I ask him to pipe down, I look up and there's a 7-Eleven gas station sign, and behind it is a light that I have yet to see in this world. And I get goosebumps thinking about it still. And that light was God. I think, right? Like dreams can be extrapolated in any kind of way, but it was enough encouragement for me to then that morning wake up and do the doing, as Nick would say, right? And so I went in for the last 4 years after that dream, just showing up. And really, I mean, any of my friends can tell you, and it's the one thing I brag about is my ability to show up hard, good, doesn't matter. Having, having lost my freedom, having filed bankruptcy, having moments where my life was tested or threatened, having that light behind me for those 4 years was just enough, And it's funny because my dad growing up, he's one of the finest entrepreneurs you'll ever meet. And I say finest in the sense that nothing he does doesn't involve soul. Everything has a part of him in it. But he'd be the first guy to tell you don't go into business because it's extremely difficult. And on the surface, those words as a macho man, it's like, yeah, right. Yeah, let me show you how easy this is. No, he was totally right. And right in the way that it's less about the business itself. And I learned that it's more about my ability to be the man in the business. And, David Goggins, you see him on your wall there. He'll say how you do anything's how you do everything. What a true statement. The little things add up to big things. And I would just continue to keep thoughts like that in my head where it's like, okay, if I do this today, maybe tomorrow. I guess a part of those first 4 years after that dream, I carried a bit of entitlement. I had dreams afterwards. I dream every night. But they're no longer just illustrations that my mind paints in the evening to show me some crazy illustration. They are very particular messages. Whoever's watching over me, for some reason, has trusted me enough to see them, and it's crazy. It's crazy enough that for about 4 years, when I would have a dream, I would wake up scared because they're so premeditative. So I would see a version of you in a dream at a gym. I would spend 4 days going like, who's this guy? I would be in the middle of work being like, why was he wearing this shirt? Why was he driving a boat? And then day 4 would come and you show up in like a Cadillac Eldorado, a boat, right? And it would be painted purple, the same color shirt you had. And I would have like a moment of acclamation where I would be sitting there going like, oh, and what a gift to be given, because a lot of my life was ruled by fear. I like to think that the grace these dreams give me is some higher spirit sharing with me that I know that fear is in you. I want to help. I've since, so many dreams after that, many of which show up in real life. The dream of radon, standing on that edge of the boat, pointing north. I feel very lucky. The gratitude I can carry now as a business owner, as a man who's seeking a wife and someone who wants children. I don't think that I would be the man I am without the support of those. So
I'm going to tell you something about a dream now that is similar. This and it'll be ironic. This episode will come out later than the episode that I recorded early this morning, which was kind of, I interviewed myself and it was a recap. I don't know if I've told this story, at least on the podcast, but I, I was really contemplating if I wanted to keep doing the transportation. And as you said, your father with soul in the business, I was really feeling a lack of that. And I need to be connected on a deeper level to the what and the why of what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd been thinking for the last couple of years, and there was times when I was really consciously focusing on this, probably not as maybe as strategically as you were, depending on how strategic you were.
I don't know if I'd call that strategy.
But it was this, I'd look at the name Mountain Mule and the logo, and I'm like, there's something here. There's so much more here. And I'm like, what is it? What am I missing? And I'm like, but it's here. I'm like, it's not. And there's this, I was kind of torn because part of me is like, I want to keep doing this. We're just driving people around. The other part's like, no, there's something here. And it was last December, like woke up early in bed. And when you're in that state when you're awake, but you're not awake yet.
The witching hour. Yeah.
And it was, as clear as day. And I fortunately, I said it to my fiance because it was one of those things that it almost probably would have vanished. But I'm like, I don't know if this was a dream or I don't know if this was a vision, but I need to start this podcast, and I'm going to have different business owners on, and that's going to be a resource for my clients. It's going to connect them as a community. It's going to connect the community to each other. And she's like, okay, she's like, what are you talking? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, that same day I'm driving through the canyon to Big Sky. I'm like, yeah, connecting Montana. I'm like, okay, like this thing's got wings. Like they're imaginary and I just made them up. I'm like, well, this is going to happen. And then since then, like, I just did it. I'm like, no, I'm really doing this. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I was already doing a podcast. So this was complementing the podcast I was doing with my buddy. But now this entire business has a completely new meaning and I couldn't be more attached to it. And it was that, whatever that was, that dream state. But I said it when I recorded that podcast this morning, like, I don't take credit for that idea.
Mm-hmm.
That was, whatever you want to call it, whatever your beliefs are, fine. But that, it came through an accumulation of my life experience and something else that it just came to me, and here we are. So I resonate with that.
Yeah, no. And dude, it warms my heart because there's a practice in like emotional healing. And I'm going to butcher it completely, somatic awareness. And so I really look at our bodies as tuning forks to the world. And I think early on, we're inundated with societal pressures, parental pressures, these things of others' ideas and dreams of us that we either succumb to, or a lot like you, I, and our friends, we eventually face. And I think if we face those with the most honest version of ourselves in that season, the muse, as we may call it, I'll throw God.
There's a Stephen Pressfield book up there.
Oh, dude. But that muse, I think, is asking us to ask it, show me something. And I couldn't ever really feel that. I on the surface was always kind of witty with words. I was always joyful. I would invite others and things and would never really become friends with them. But I've always been an artist, and that the idea of the muse coming into me in a state of flow was, she could only, or he could only stop me at sleep. And my mind would quiet down enough to where like any frequency that they were trying to share with me would finally illuminate. And it's important that it doesn't matter if you're atheist, it doesn't matter what religion you fall to. I think if you can trust the highest conscience in you enough, invite it to play with you. I think that's what it wants. I think it's asking you to ask it something, because it's showing so much. It's showing it an extension of faith. It's showing that you see the worth in you, and hard things are worth doing. And hard is only relevant to how we define it. Hard for me was looking at myself in the mirror, seeing my body in an image I didn't want, hearing things from friends or colleagues that just, they thought this of me. Why? It's like, with the trust I gave to it and it to me, I found a conviction of self-worth that I'm more than humble enough to know when I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm right, but now those right decisions are being met with a collaborative effort from my team, my family, my friends. And then two, I really try not to move on decisions without, consulting the dream space and going, hey, if this is right, make it easy. Some of my, so again, I'm going to bring up Nick because I think he's an archangel, but, um, Nick invites prayers that I didn't know you could ask. Nick would often ask, hey, Jeff, why don't you go to God and say, can you make it obvious? Could you make this so clear as day that I don't even have to decide? It decides for me. And when I began to empower myself in the language I would share with the world with those prayers, I saw that things naturally would find me, and those that weren't a part of our journey would naturally fall off. And so my ability to show up just became more empowered. All I had to do was have a bad idea and move forward with it. And instead of waiting weeks and months to learn whether or not this was a good move, I'd learn in hours. If anyone is trying to like pursue the idea of dreaming, I have no context or like academic knowledge behind it. I'm I often quote, I'm an artist disguised as a business owner, but the best way to begin inviting some of that stuff is, look at your history, look at the genealogy of yourself. So I'm Nordic and there's some French in me and Viking. So I went into that, I started learning about Thor and like all these crazy things. And I'm like, how is the majesty of that era? How does it translate to me now? And I think that curiosity just eventually boiled over, and it boiled over and it showed up in trust with something bigger than me. And to think that if I'm gifted this, what else can God deem me responsible to be? And that's how I look at things. It's like, okay, if I can take care of my vineyard, I want to make sure that should God come down, that his room's ready, that the vines are trimmed, that everything is in a state where it's an expression of me. And if how we do anything's how we do everything, everything in your business, whether or not you like it, is an extension of you. And if you're okay with that, then I think you've met your art. If you aren't okay, I think it's not calling you into a place of judgment. I think it is more our internal basis is asking us to be better. And until we face that person, I think most of the lives that I'm surrounded by are oftentimes kind of littered in fear and mess. But yeah, make your bed. That's what Jordan Peterson says.
I couldn't agree more with that statement. And I've said that so much that my business is an expression of myself. And sometimes that's a hard thing to, you see the weak spots and the hard spots. And that's, something you can choose to face and take on, or you can just, I feel like for me, it's a tool to see myself.
Yeah.
And it
100%.
It will just show me, my strength and my weaknesses for better or worse. But for me, it's a canvas to reveal myself.
Mm-hmm.
You made a quote a few times earlier that I really like. No, I think before we were recording, you said, you like to pull yourself out of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, speak to that expression.
Yeah. My brother made a really funny comment maybe a decade ago at Christmas. Jeffrey's the family life coach. And yeah, I guess I'm proud of that now, because I had, when I was 13, my assistant baseball coach was murdered in Bozeman. He was the one guy who was able to say the exact words I needed to on a daily basis that motivated me as a baseball player to try and reach into me and be the best version of myself. And it was showing up first to practice, leaving last kind of stuff. When he passed, that wasn't filled back in. And I don't know if by God or by me, but, and so like if anyone jumps on my Spotify list, it's all motivation. It's something that's like, hey, push yourself, and not this masculine desire. It's, I take life seriously, and I've seen when I don't, that people literally die, people lose businesses, I lose friendships, and taking that sincerity into everything has allowed me to pull me out of me. When I wake up in the morning, unmarried, all the things, I think the easy thing to do is to crawl back into bed, play the woe is me game, and go along with the victim mindset that unfortunately a lot of America carries. Um, there is a larger part of me now that would rather show up and fight and lose and wear those scars with pride, knowing that I showed up, right? The arena, Teddy Roosevelt, right? Just show up. You're in the arena, you're doing the thing. And to think that I was able to, when I pull me out of me, I do that now with the support of my higher power, because I want to think that when I show up to the pearly gates, and my dad, who's living, by the way, but if he's there ahead of me, I want him to be so proud, because I know that in his deepest heart, as stern as he can be at times, that he just wants to see the little Jeff at 6 years old who is free and joyful doing the things. And now that as an older man, I get to do those things, I think the godly side of me finds more joy in knowing I'm doing those in the service of others and not neglecting the shirt off my back.
Very cool.
Cool or crazy?
I've written down, have you read Matthew McConaughey's book?
Yeah, Green Lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Dreams.
I have, yeah. And I appreciate Matthew, man. I really do. I think the green lights are often hard to understand, because I think we're all a bit colorblind until we start to fight for ourselves. And when I say fight, I'm just going to go back to the one quality I think I'm great at, which is showing up. Fighting sometimes can be, giving the guy $5 with 10 in your pocket, just thinking like, hey, I'm doing something above myself. Fighting can be firing a client. Fighting can be making sure I'm spending an additional 5 minutes on a large quote so that I'm not eating those costs later. Fighting could be a good meal before I go to bed instead of the Burger King that I got last night. It's the sincerity I go back to. It's taking life serious enough to know that I'm worth the fight. And I ask that of my friends. Like, I don't ask for much, a lot like you were raised on a dairy farm, man. If you have a wrench and your whatever breaks down and dad's 5 properties over, the last thing he wants to hear is a call from you saying, can you help me? And not that he won't. It's just that he trusts you enough to know that you can do it on your own. And I think that's how God looks at us. I think he's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to position you in moments that I need you to fight for yourself. And until you're willing to do so, how can I trust in gifting you anything? The responsibility of more, if we look at business, you have employees, I have employees. We're paying those people, and yeah, they get a paycheck. What we're not accounting for are the 3 children they support, the wife, the mortgage. I employ 6 people. In my heart, I know I employ 18. And if I'm going to show up ignorant to one of those, I'm the outcome downstream is terrible. And I would rather lose a few bucks up front to know that I'm providing for my team. And it's the one concept I just recently came to terms with, is this idea that leaders eat last. I was defrauded. Me and an investment group were defrauded of a local business we tried to purchase, and the operator we went into that business with would express that often. Jeff, leaders eat last. It's like, all right, man, what does that really mean? Because when I look at leaders, they're eating at the same table as their team. So if leaders are eating last, are we just allowing that to be submissive and not actually assume that we're not doing the due diligence to protect the financing we have to feed ourselves? Because I'm a terrible artist if I can't buy my paint. I'm a terrible artist if I can't feed myself. And so if I'm going to eat last, it is going to be for damn good reason. And now the culture we carry is we're leaders on the front lines. And so every employee we have, from the greenest of green to the most experienced, they are going to go through the same process I did when it comes to learning what we do, but more importantly, the why. And they will never have to eat last, but should they see me, they know why. And I'm willing to sacrifice that. And I think that's what separates business owners from the maybes or the mights, those folks that are experiencing the hiccups of overcoming their own fears. be okay eating last. As you know, or are learning, there's more to business than just the paycheck you get every so often, or the invoice you send, or the people you pay. Um, there's real value being built outside of it that is a bit invisible. So in building local demo, the itch I wanted to scratch was validating my intelligence by selling a big business, in which I did. But with that selling of business and the desire to kind of eat with my team, I would often neglect just the discipline that it required. And yeah, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, man. Sorry.
You're good, man. I wanted to say when you were saying, you're 5 miles away and you need to fix that piece of equipment, and your father, whoever's to really hoping just figure it out on your own. As a business owner, I'm sure you could relate to this. When your employees do that, there's nothing more admirable when an employee says, I'll figure it out, versus hey, I'm stuck, come help me. And I think that that's a really cool mindset to have as a person in the world, that God, or whatever you want to say, is saying, but look, you have the tools and you have the ability, and this might not be easy, but I know you can do it.
Well, and I wouldn't put you in this spot if I didn't think you could do it.
Yeah.
And, being raised by a business owner, a man of faith, early, teens to 20s, I would beg for help in a way that's like a child not getting their toy. And it's like, come on. Up until going through some emotional development, sitting with myself, really seeing myself for who I am, I was able to correct that narrative in my head to understand that my dad wouldn't have done that had he not trusted me. And my dad, I had a nickname growing up, Two Dogs, because raising Jeffrey was like raising two dogs. And to think that I'm flattered by that now. That's a great nickname, because I host the energy and the competency to pursue things at a level of risk that I can now discern enough through to know, is this really risky, or is this a part of business? And to think that I'm being gifted these moments to test responsibility is really just an expression of the man my dad raised. And I will never put an employee in a position in something I wouldn't do myself. And we have moments all the time where, maybe it comes back. So one of the promises we carry with Radon is that we don't leave your house until that system is effectively showing results of 4 parts per curie or less. So if I design a system, install it, do all the work and headache to get it to a point of running, and we're still testing hot, Jeff and his team get to eat a bit of cost and going back to be an integral person and do things with humility to show them that who you hired was the exact person you needed to. And now, gosh, when I ask for things, I'm asking for God to give me the courage that's necessary. I'm not asking for this tool. I'm not asking for this person. Everything I need finds me. But if I can step in knowing that, given the responsibility I carry on a day-to-day basis, if this is something I need to do, I will do it. And I think that just speaks to men, because I'll go back to entitled. I think oftentimes those that are wanting to pursue things of, self-fulfilling identity, pursuits of risk, business, art, you name it, there is a trust that I think if we can come to terms with ourselves, everything we need will find us. And you don't need to be the shiny guy right out of the gate. My favorite metaphor, and I'm eventually going to get shirts printed of this guy. Do you remember the Olympics, maybe 8 years ago now? There was they had the biathlon, and there was a guy from Turkey who was doing the pistol version. And all he had was a pistol, no red dot, and he took second place.
Yeah, I do remember this.
Be that guy always. You don't need the fancy Milwaukee. Every tool I had year 1 of Bozeman Radon was a Harbor Freight. And the camera won't pick this up, but my allegiance to this business came from a Harbor Freight tool when I broke this finger. And it was sideways on a job site in the middle of Cardwell, Montana. So there's like, the closest town's like 30 miles away, and the client's on my back watching me. So as I break my finger with the client watching, I don't I'm not trying to be tough. I'm just going, hey, this invoice, the money gets me home, quite literally. And so to know that that was me investing in me, that was me reinvesting in God. And then two, to know that, is it painful or are you sore? Those are two very different things. You know, we went on a big hunting trip this last weekend. My mom let me know your dad's in pain. And the first question was, is it pain or is it sore? Because if he's in pain, we need to go to the hospital. But if you're sore, this was painful. Me being ignorant was like, buck up, buddy. But to be able to know that that is a part of this. You're going to break yourself. You're going to hurt. You're going to bleed. You're going to cry. Do it. Be so vulnerable to let God know that you're willing to show up as emotional as you are to still do the thing. And then allow that to be expressed through the art of creating business or whatever it is you are creating, because the best parts of you come up in that. You know, we have friends who are artists. I've seen some folks' art evolve so much with their character that now it's not even the same. And I get to celebrate quietly knowing that they're such a better human, even if they won't admit it. And then, you know, the other concept I throw around often with our team is the easy and right. Alex Hormozy talks about the decision tree, and that decision tree in our culture is the easy and right decision. The easy decision shows up, it's obvious, and it's often the wrong one. The right decision sometimes comes with eating crow, sometimes comes with costs out of pocket you weren't expecting, sometimes comes with cost of losing a friendship, but doing it right. And I think right is, I don't think you have to argue over its definition, because right often comes with a level of morality that you can't turn away from. And I think continued experience and getting reps and doing the right things, eventually you're never positioned with the easy thing. And the right thing almost brings me more joy, even as hard as it can be. It's like, hey, how many men are going to show up to do this thing? And I get to call the cowboy out in me and go, you know what? I'm probably one of a million. You know, damn right I am. And I'm proud as all, because there's no one I would trust more with this than me right now. And even if we're in seasons of low, I trust my team immensely. We have other team members that help us quote and build a business, but there are seasons where I need to take the rifle. I need to do the shooting, because as much as I trust you, I look at business as an art project. If you ever, with your mother, if you come back from school, right, and you have this beautiful piece of art you want to show your mom, you're so excited about it, she wants to put it on the fridge. That's what business is. Be so excited that what you've built you can show off to the world, but be willing to go back and correct the things that are necessary to make that art piece amazing.
I love it, man. I could keep talking to you for hours. We'll need to wrap this up. So people want to find you for Radon,
Yeah.
BozemanRadon.com.
Yeah. So BozemanRadon.com on the interwebs. You can jump on Instagram. You can see us supporting a local nonprofit called Alongside Here, who helps veteran women or women of service. And we have an event coming up that we're going to sponsor. Yeah, or you can see us at Montana Real Producers. With what Rochelle's doing out there is pretty great. But yeah, we're all over the place, and we will be extending our service area to Missoula here pretty soon, to Billings pretty soon, and eventually we'll be offering our services to the state of Montana.
Cool. I'm gonna put all your links to everything in the description. It's fun getting to know you, man. I think we're gonna have a good friendship on our hands.
100%. This went by so fast.
And we didn't even get into baseball, but we'll talk about baseball a lot.
I got the mitt in the truck. Let's go.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you, man. This was fun.
Thank you, man.
And I'm gonna say again, if anyone's listening to this and it feels like there's 2 episodes jumbled together, there is. And that alone really speaks to you and your character, because you asked, if we had time to do this, could you follow up on a few things about Radon, because you didn't want to misspeak. And that alone, is the signal behind the signal that you wanted to take the extra time to make sure that you were distributing the proper information. And that, I think that in itself speaks to the quality of everything you do within your business. So thanks for doing what you do, and appreciate you being here.
Amen.
Thanks, man. Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links, at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.